the young stripper meets the son of Russian oligarchs at work. Their brief acquaintance smoothly turns into a desire to get married, despite the rich kid's parents' strong dislike for a daughter-in-law of easy virtue.
So we're getting a divorce, right?
Yeah! What are you, stupid?
The film begins in the back rooms of the upscale strip club headquarters, where Anora Mikiva, a descendant of Russian immigrants, works as a regular dancer, who prefers to be called Annie. The girl gives the club's patrons the side-eye, sincerely hoping that none of them is Brad Pitt with a can of dog food. During breaks, she gossips with her colleagues about the wealthy regulars, twisting and turning for the pleasure of those who request a private dance. One evening, a rich customer stumbles into the pub, desperately in need of a girl who speaks Russian. Given Annie's background, she is the one being referred to this patient, who turns out to be the rich kid Vanya Zakharov. The dancer confesses to the guy that her grandmother, an immigrant, taught her Russian before they retreat to a private room. After the private dance, Vanya asks if he can hire the dancer outside the club, to which she gives him her phone number. Early in the morning, Annie rides the subway to Brighton Beach, a place where it rains and where Nikolai Belik lives next door. There, the girl lives with her sister. After catching up on sleep from her shift, the night butterfly is getting ready to visit her suitor from yesterday, Vanya. He lives in a luxurious mansion by the bay. Without much hesitation, the couple gets down to what the meeting was all about: awkward intimacy. After CODIS, the guests are interested in how the client earned money for this mansion. But the high Vanya skillfully dodges the topic at first, then admits that his father is the Russian oligarch Nikolai Zakharov. Later that evening, Annie brags to her friends in the dancing business that she snagged a wealthy client for a private session. She's being eavesdropped on by a jealous rival with the alias Diamond. Annie revisits Vanya, who compensates for the universal balance. After their intimate encounter, he harshly dumps Katya in a hypothetical Fortnite match. The rich kid also invites the girl of low social responsibility to a New Year's party. At the appointed hour, the strippers arrive at the address, marveling at the luxury and grandeur of the parties thrown by the Russian elite. As they drown the liver in alcohol, they don't pay attention to the two adult Armenians, Toros and Garnik, who have been assigned to keep an eye on Vanya. After the clock strikes midnight, the guests head to the mansion's rooftop to celebrate the new year with fireworks. After spending the night with a holiday surcharge, Annie is getting ready to head home at 5 in the evening. Waking up, Vanya makes her an offer she can't refuse. The guy wants to buy a week of her time for $15,000, so that she would play the role of his girlfriend. Considering the profitability of the arrangement, Annie agrees. She takes a day off without pay from the strip club, after which she moves in with Vanya, keeping him entertained with her warmth, the soft female body amidst the binge-watching of video games and hanging out with other descendants of immigrants, who, due to the lack of millionaires in their background, are forced to work in a small shop on the waterfront. There, the youth notices an adult walrus in a swimsuit, surprising them with her off-season swimming. At some point, in the latest UGAR, the idea sounds that the best parties in Las Vegas do not think for long, since this is fraught with overheating of the brain. Vanya's wealthy friends suggest they take off to the city of Sin on a private plane, funded by their parents. Upon arrival, they check into a luxury suite, playfully trolling the staff for not kicking out the guests who were supposed to leave on time. No one knew that the VIP clients would show up suddenly, like a bout of diarrhea, and with the same level of unpleasantness. Next comes an unrestrained party chat with friends, all on his parents' dime. Vanya diligently pays for the group of guests. Elite alcohol, hanging out in clubs, splashing in the pool, massages and other delights of the luxury life. In the frenzy of constant fun, the guy suddenly confesses his love to Annie, after which he concludes that they are made for each other, like kichunes and dumplings, and proposes marriage. Moreover, marriage to a third-generation Native American will give him citizenship, which will allow him to avoid deportation to his historical homeland. Considering everything, the couple, still under the influence, heads to the nearest chapel to register their marriage according to the laws of the state of Nevada. After celebrating joyfully through the streets of Sin City, the newlyweds return to New York. There, Annie shares the latest news with her former colleagues and leaves the dance business, illustrating the sacred phrase, "Goodbye, losers, I've always hated you." Even the spiteful squawking of the envious Diamond can't ruin her mood. While Annie enjoys the perks of being the wife of a Russian oligarch, Vanya's parents belatedly learn about the marriage from social media. They keep calling Toros, who was supposed to keep an eye on the willful rich kid but got distracted by personal family matters. To find out the truth behind the circulating rumors, Toros sends two loyal compatriots, Garnik and Igor, to Vanya's mansion. Igor has become the best guy in the world after a trip in Coupe number 6. At Vanya's place, he indulges in sybaritism and hedonism, playing all sorts of games on Xbox, cuddled up with a permanently rented mistress who was bitten by a rabid tick in the Pakovaya region. Suddenly there's a knock at the door from Garnik and Igor, who passed by the colorful guard at the gate. They've come to check on the young man's social status. While Garnik checks the marriage certificate in the next room, Igor keeps an eye on Annie. Having confirmed that the marriage is real, Garnik informs Toros, who in turn calls Vanya's parents, instructing his subordinates to stay put until further notice, despite the rich kid and his wife's desire to get rid of the guests. Toros calls Russia with some unpleasant news for the local oligarchs. They decide to urgently fly to the USA to personally deal with the one who has dared to go after their son, Korzin. Zina is a prostitute. Armen tells his subordinates that they need to keep an eye on the main culprits of the celebration while he arranges for the annulment of the marriage. Annie is strongly opposed to such a turn of events. She didn't marry an oligarch just to be used and discarded. Vanya himself, realizing that meeting the parents won't lead to anything good, decides to run away, leaving his newlywed wife in the hands of the Armenian guests. Meanwhile, Igor tries to handle the unruly Annie, who refuses to just wait and actively struggles to break free. He has to tie her hands to minimize the damage. Toros on speakerphone is rolling towards the scene, listening over the phone as the kicking girl hits Garnik in the face with her feet. Upon arriving at the scene, the leader sees the chaos unfolding and tries to sort everything out. He promises the dancer $10,000 in exchange for a divorce, although she refuses. Annie wants to talk to her runaway husband first. To stop the girl from screaming, the men gag her with a scarf, pondering their next move while removing the wedding ring from her finger. Vanya's parents will arrive in the morning, and until then, they must find the irresponsible rich kid in the city, having no idea where he might have fled in panic. Toros persuades Annie to help them, hinting that their marriage will inevitably be annulled. This way, she might at least gain something from it for herself. Then the whole team sets out to search for Vanya throughout the city. First, they stop by Igor's house, where he brings out painkillers for Garnik, who got a concussion from Annie's kick. Then they visit a store where Vanya's friends are. They act aggressively towards the strangers Annie brought along, but Igor's stern authority and excellent reflexes allow them to take the bat from the local tough guy and wreak havoc in the establishment. Having received a theoretical lead, the group heads along the classic waterfront to a Russian restaurant where another friend of Igor's is cooking. However, he hasn't shown up there either. Toros shows a photo of the young man to the patrons, but no one has seen him. It's already getting dark when they leave the establishment, continuing their search for the source of the problems. Upon leaving the pub, Toros is forced to hijack his own car from a tow truck driver. It's like a mission in GTA. The group drives to places where the runaway might theoretically be hanging out. First, they visit a billiard hall where they know Vanya, but he hasn't been seen there for a long time. On the way from there, the driver starts to feel nauseous. While Toros cleans the seat from vomit at the nearest gas station and his assistant gets some fresh air, the stripper and Igor smoke, not caring at all that it's prohibited. They continue driving around to different places trying to find Vanya. He's always half a step ahead, leaving the bars shortly before they arrive. Then the gang goes to a cheap cafe sharply contrasting in status with their usual restaurants to grab a bite. There, Annie receives a call from Lulu. Her friend says that the newlywed husband is indulging in vice and debauchery, having returned to the strip club headquarters. He was recognized by the envious Diamond, who is trying to charm a rich Russian nerd. The lawful wife arrives at the club with her entourage and tries to get through to the drunk Vanya, directly telling him that they are being forced to divorce. However, the young man doesn't understand anything. The rich kid is taken outside, but in the process, Diamond provokes Annie, which turns into a massive brawl among all the participants of the pole dancing and stripping festival. When everyone gathers in the car salon, Annie argues that the husband is not in a fit state to sign the documents. But this doesn't stop the Armenians. They drive to the courthouse, where they spend the rest of the night waiting for the new workday to begin. In the morning, they are met by the Zakharov family's personal lawyer. Annie delivers an emotional speech before the judge, arguing that they shouldn't be divorced with her hungover husband, but all efforts are in vain. By law, a marriage can only be annulled in the state of Nevada. Realizing that the problem is not solved, the group heads to the airfield where the Zakharovs' private plane lands. Annie tries to convince her husband that they can explain everything to his parents and save the marriage. Soon, Galina Stepanovna and Nikolai Zakharov, who has plenty of problems, arrive. Just recently, some pensioner embezzled and burned the entrusted communal fund. The mother immediately orders the plane to be refueled to fly to Vegas, where the marriage between her son and the local prostitute can be annulled. Annie tries to convince Vanya not to succumb to manipulation, but from the conversation with the sobered-up playboy, it becomes clear that he is not ready to use the billion-dollar inheritance for dubious happiness in the arms of a fold-out bed. Annie threatens to sue for half of the property, to which Galina Stepanovna objects. The legal costs would bankrupt her. Realizing there is no way out, the girl boards the plane along with the other event participants. The husband, who swore his love, diligently avoids eye contact, sitting at a distance and arguing with his mother. She scolds her son for his reckless decisions, and he, as a spoiled playboy would, disregards her words completely. Listening to Vanya's excuses, Annie says she's glad about the upcoming divorce. In terms of character, he's not much of a man, not even able to stand up for his own opinion. Igor, observing the situation, pours a drink for his careless wife to calm her nerves. Upon arriving in Vegas, the group heads to a lawyer to finalize the divorce. Galina Stepanovna actively comments on the situation while her son shamefully averts his gaze, unwilling to look his ex-wife in the eye. When Annie leaves, Igor suddenly suggests that Vanya apologize to her. But his mother objects, saying that her son has nothing to apologize for. Then Annie calls her ex-husband a pathetic coward and confronts his mother with the fact her son hates her so much that he even got married out of spite. This performance causes the elder Zakharov to burst into Homeric laughter. Apparently he himself thought something similar but didn't dare to voice it. Igor and Annie return to New York, to the Zakharov mansion, from where the girl is supposed to move out. While passing the time watching movies, they chat about various things. The guy admits that in Che, it was his birthday, but he didn't tell anyone, being busy with work. In the morning, when it suddenly started snowing over the city, Igor withdraws money from the bank and pays Annie compensation. Then he gives her a ride to her sister's home, from where the girl had recently moved out with great fanfare. As a farewell, the guy returns her engagement ring, which he had previously taken off her finger, but asks her not to tell anyone about it. Deeply moved, the girl decides to be intimate with him. However, when Igor tries to kiss her in a surge of emotion, Honora turns away and, realizing her own emotional poverty, begins to cry right in his arms. The film ends on this note.